Hello there, how are you? Welcome back to How I Did It. Today's project is me doing the brakes on my 87 Toyota pickup 5-speed. Now the first video showed the passenger side bleeder, how it was all rusted out. The second picture or video showed the driver's side bleeder valve. Now the driver's side bleeder valve didn't look that rusted, but that thing was just as stuck as the passenger side. So I had to use the breaker bar to get both of these front tires off. It has been quite a while since I've done a brake job on it. There was rust on the lug nuts. The 450 foot-pound new Harbor Freight half-inch driver would not take these off, so used the breaker bar, loosened everything up, and then I was able to come back. The one side I used my socket and ratchet, the other side I used the impact to pull the lug nuts off. Then sat the tires underneath the frame of the truck just in case. So here's the passenger side. That thing is so rusted. It is just the weirdest thing in the world. Now I used the PB rust buster or blaster, whatever they call it, with my box socket, and that thing did not want to break loose for anything. This is the driver's side, and I thought, well, let's just try the driver's side. And as you'll see, I'm trying to get this thing to loosen up, and no matter what I did, see how it's flexing? That thing was in there. Now there's nobody to blame for how jammed in this was other than me. I'm the only one that works on this. So I scratched my head trying to figure out what I was going to do. Didn't want to break anything. My actual tools to do a true brake job were in town, not out here at the off-grid barn. So I called my friend Randy, lived up the street from me. He's a master mechanic. He said what they used to do with their cars when they were rusted, the bleeder valves were rusted like that, was they would, if the rotor was good, they would just take this housing off, replace the pads, and then they would compress that piston back in, which would send all that brake fluid back up into the actual master cylinder reservoir. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's genius. So if you're having this issue, don't break that bleeder valve off. Just empty a little bit of fluid out of the top of your master cylinder container, and then you can push the fluid that's in those brake lines right back up into the master cylinder. I was like, man, that's awesome. So I used my clamp. I put the brake pad on either side of the housing, squeezed the clamp down to get it kind of in place, and then that's when I went up to the top and I used my topsider and I pulled out about half of the brake fluid out of the master cylinder reservoir. Now I didn't want to pull it all out. I didn't want to take a chance on any air getting into the brake lines or down into that housing. So I did this here, and then I came back down and just tightened down with the clamp, making sure that that piston was going in nice and smooth so I wouldn't pinch the rubber boot and cause a brake fluid leak. And it was absolutely just the coolest thing. That fluid went right up into that master cylinder brake reservoir, or brake fluid reservoir. So again, a shout out to Randy. If it hadn't been for him, I probably would have been a dork. I would have broken that bleeder off. And here's a look at how close I was on these brake pads. So I cleaned everything off, put a little bit of anti-squeal where the brake pads sit into their little slides, and then I just reassembled it. It was so cool. I'm tickled to death. What a great little hack for people out there who are having this same issue where you can't get that bleeder valve to open up. Put my 2 bolts back in there, get them tightened down, everything's back together. Once both sides completely done, I 100% suctioned all of the old brake fluid out of the master cylinder reservoir. Now, I was kind of hoping to get all the old brake fluid out of there 100%, but with the bleeder valves not cooperating, this was at least halfway what I wanted to do, as well as getting the new pads on there. You know, the pads were key. And then here I'm just using the topsider. Now, all you need is a turkey baster. You can suction this out with a turkey baster. You don't have to go spend money on a topsider. And then I put my brand new brake fluid in, put everything back together, and then took it out for a quick little test drive around the property. And yes, I was racing the puppies just a little bit. This 87 Toyota is the coolest truck in the world. Alrighty, y'all. I want to thank you for stopping by. Have an absolutely wonderful and blessed day. I'll see you next time on How I Did It. Take care.